Okay, we'll call the February meeting of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency to order. Start with roll call.
Chair Thor,
Here.
Vice Chair Griva,
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez, Councilmember Wood.
Here.
I'm sorry, I keep calling you guys council members. Board Member White,
Here.
I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the GSA on any items not on the closed session, consent calendar, public hearings, and agency business. Under state regulations, no action can be taken on non-agenda items, including issues raised under this agenda item. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing the GSA regarding items not specifically referenced on this agenda. Is there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
There is, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Versick is online and has his hand up.
Hey, Mr. Versick.
Thank you, Chair. Tom Versick speaking, and this may or may not come up in your general manager's report, so I'm just treating it as a public comment since I can't quite tell ahead of time. My public comment is about voluntary demand management that the Salinas Valley GSA has been discussing. It's not enacted. It's going to go through a couple more cycles. But based on what has been discussed in various meetings, it appears that this management area may find its stakeholders being charged a Tier 1 all-valley fee for voluntary demand management, which is being described as agricultural BMPs or certain kind of domestic water programs and things. Now, those are not bad programs. They're good programs, it would seem, but they seem to be pointless in a basin that is not in overdraft. For other basins, if you can save water any which way, by hook or crook, that seems reasonable. But if you are not, you don't need to save any water, whether it's domestic or agricultural, to be imposed, to have to finance doing so. And also, perhaps it would occur and it would be useless. And as I understand the BMP that is in this basin under which the management area functions, the SMC TAC is your first line. And as far as I know, they have had absolutely no opinion on whether these kind of voluntary programs would have any bearing whatsoever or any benefit at all, which, I think ultimately, if they're pointless, if they're just pretend things, you're going to have a Proposition 26 problem. And I do mean you, because I have clients in this management area, and if they find that they're being charged a tier one fee for what seems to be pointless, for which there seems to be at the moment no evidence, analysis, anything, then you all might find yourselves, also named along with the Salinas Valley GSA. And I'm not trying to threaten litigation per se, but this is what someone would need to do if there's a genuine dispute, and it's easily avoidable. And I'm bringing it up now in general comment in probably a month or two before the Salinas Valley GSA makes any decisions. And the reason I'm doing it is because you have an agreement with the Salinas Valley GSA about how things are supposed to work. So there's certain staff to staff, certain other remedies. So I encourage the board to give appropriate direction to its staff to engage with the Salinas Valley GSA so that these kinds of voluntary programs are not going to end up in the management area, will not be on, your stakeholders, fee statements in August or whenever they come out, because they seem, make believe, frankly. They seem pretend. And the Salinas Valley GSA, they may get a lot of PR benefit out of it. That's all fine. But let them get that benefit from the basins that actually need a demand management program, be it voluntary or not. So I'm giving you as much of a heads up as I can about the direction this might head and hoping it can be averted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Versick. Nancy Isaacson.
Thank you, Nancy Isaacson, Salinas Valley Water Coalition. I wanted to follow up on Mr. Versick's comments because he said something at the end, which, anyway, the GSA, the Roseco GSA, your board, my understanding is of the process that you do have the opportunity to look at and weigh in on any fees through your budget process that the Salinas Valley Basin GSA may propose. And so that, what Mr. Versick said about the potential for demand management actions, implementations to be valley-wide as a tier one, that would really be important for you to be able to weigh in. And I just wanted to confirm that process, that if that is the process, that you get to look at what they're proposing for the budget, for the fees that would be affected in your area and what that process is. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Any response to that, to those?
So I think Ms. Isaacson's spot on. We will review the fees and make comments. It's likely that we'll use the existing coordination committee as a vehicle to talk about fees. That's ongoing in our agenda to do so. And it's certainly an area of concern. So, I hear both Mr. Versick and Ms. Isaacson that there are concerns about how demand management gets paid for, what bucket goes in. I do have more to say about demand management once I get into my report a little later on today, at which you guys at the end, you guys can give me some additional direction. But relative to the fees process, yes, we talk about fees, coordination committee meeting, and I expect that to happen maybe next week. And there is one that's currently scheduled for the 4th or the meeting after that.
Okay, thank you. I still see Mr. Versick's hand up, but other than, do you have more comments? No, it's down. Okay. Well, I don't see any other public comments for items not on the agenda. We'll move on to consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered routine and may be approved by one action of the agency unless a request for removal for discussion or explanation is received prior to the time the agency votes on the motion to adopt. We have one item. It would be the adoption of the minutes of the January 27, 2026 Roseco GSA meeting.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. receive Arroyo Seco Groundwater Sustainability Agency General Manager Status Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got one item to talk about that has occurred and two items that are going to be occurring. So let's talk about the item that happened last week. There was a GSA, Salinas Valley Basin GSA Advisory Committee meeting. I'll characterize the meeting as a good meeting. I thought some positive outcomes occurred. The agenda was a little light, I thought. We had an update on the groundwater model, which I thought was going to be kind of a administrative thing. We talked about it for an hour. And really what was happening in that hour worth of dialogue, it felt like many of the participants in the committee were kind of posturing for their area, for their concern, rather than really focusing on the material, as sometimes meetings will do. It kind of drifted. One participant wanted to put in a whole bunch of additional information on top of what was already out there, model. So we had kind of a long-winded discussion that really wasn't focused on the topic, but was talking about the general, I'll say, conditions in the Salinas Valley. The next item in the meeting was a beginning of a discussion about an integrated approach to planning for the future in the Salinas Valley. I will say that the GSA staff acknowledged that the GSPs are the guiding documents for each of the sub-basin, but there's, I think there's a recognition that things are going to cross boundaries, especially in the east side and the pressure area when we start talking about seawater intrusion or fixes. And, and so we got two chapters, we got them late, but it started another discussion about individual positions and opinions and thoughts about how things might proceed. And normally I try to structure the meetings so that we have kind of some management of that. I kind of went sideways and really talked to the committee members and said that we all need to agree that we have a problem and what it is. We need some solutions to that problem. And then we can talk about costs and who's going to pay for what. Because much of the posturing to date, not explicitly focused on cost, certainly had cost in mind when they were being expressed. So once we got into a dialogue, I think we all agreed that we had a problem relative to seawater intrusion, overdraft, well, not overdraft, significant groundwater declines in the east side, that we have a distribution problem, can't really percolate water vertically in the pressure area. Tough to get water, frankly, into the east side groundwater basin as well. And that we need to think about solutions for that, for those problems. Salinas Valley Basin staff said that over the next two meetings in March and April, we're going to get 2 projects each month solutions to really talk about, because that's one of the problems I think the committee has had. So we really haven't had kind of the meat and potatoes, if you will, if we're really going to be talking about getting solutions through the discussion point, looking at various options of them. We need to see them, haven't seen them yet. But staff indicated over the next 2 months, we would. So I really did see kind of a turn. I saw most of the committee members engaged, really starting to recognize, most, not all, really recognize that we could talk about solutions and then get to how we go about doing that and costing. So all things considered, it was pretty good, but it's taken us a couple meetings to get there, but I thought it was a pretty good meeting. I know a few of the public members online were also online for that meeting, and I'm going to pause and ask if you guys have any questions. And perhaps we want to go to the public so you can get their input as well.
Any questions or comments from board members? We'll go out to public comment.
I do see Mr. Versick.
Yeah, Mr. Versick.
Thank you, Chair. Tom Versick speaking. Yes, what Mr. Weeks described, I also witnessed. And I think he did a very good, for whatever it's worth to you all, he did a very good job on keeping the meeting going, broadly speaking, in a direction that the agenda suggested, because there was a huge amount of detours that various individuals were pursuing. And there is, I'm phrasing it slightly differently than Mr. Weeks, but I do see at the moment that there are two, there's probably more than that, but two primary approaches to how these issues will be addressed in that committee. And Mr. Weeks explained his approach. There's also another approach where some members want to talk about the cost, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the terms responsibility, blame, history, the backstory, all sorts of other things, sort of as a precursor to figuring out what we're supposed to do, what someone is supposed to do. So anyway, that was my impression of this other potential direction, which I know is not Mr. Weeks, and Mr. Weeks is not, was guiding it in a different way, to be frank. But I, as a member of the public with some interest through clients in this process, am very glad that Mr. Weeks is chairing that committee. That's all.
Thanks, Mr. Versick. Is there any other public comments? Nancy Isaacson.
Nancy Isaacson again. I'm just going to echo Mr. Versick's comments because I too am glad that Curtis is chairing the committee. Does a very good job of keeping the committee members focused, or tries, bring them back in. Everyone strays a little bit, but he does bring them back in and on task. And so, and I concur with Mr. Versick's comments also about two different, I'll call them strategies of what people, may want to do. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you for the
Thanks,
public.
Nancy.
Just a couple more comments on the meeting. I think one of the key elements that's driving a lot of staff is this idea that we've got to get to sustainability by 2040. So there's not a lot of time. And many of the projects that we're talking about take time for the groundwater resources to respond. Demand management won't get us there in 2040. Could it get us there in, 2080, 2090? Maybe. But we don't know. Some of the other projects, replacement water, in lieu recharge, moving surface water around also may take some time. They've been focused on this extraction barrier idea because it draws water back to the coast. And that's an effective way to get there in a timely fashion, but it costs a heck of a lot of money. So what we'll be looking at is all of those things kind of in conjunction, expanding CSIP, maybe taking more surface water off, maybe operating the reservoirs harder. Maybe there's an extraction piece in there. I don't know yet what the mix will look like, but I firmly believe if we get a really good plan that looks like it's stopping seawater intrusion and moving it towards the ocean, we may get some leeway in how long it takes for us to get there, provided that we've got a real solution on the table that shows definitive progress forward. Thus far, we have not. Thus far, we put in the Salinas Valley Water Project, and seawater intrusion has continued to move forward. Wells are continuing to be pumped in CSIP. All the things that I don't think we can continue to do if we're going to be successful. So, will demand management be a part of it? I think it will. I don't know how it will play out. I have more to say on that because we do have our own demand management program that I'll be talking about next. Will we be using surface water? Undoubtedly. I don't know exactly how. Will we be expanding CSIP? Gosh, I'm sure that makes sense. And will we be extracting groundwater? Don't know yet. But all those things are finally coming, at least to a point where we'll be able to wrestle with them, put them on the table, and get some clear ideas out. And I think we'll be able to put together, a set of solutions. So that was my takeaway from the meeting. So I'm going to segue now and talk a little bit about demand management. If you recall in your last meeting, you approved a scope of work from Gus Yates. Gus and I will be working with the advisory committee. We need to do some analysis and some evaluations. The ultimate idea will be to put a little bit more emphasis on what demand management might look like in the Arroyo Seco Cone management area, and likely all of Forebay, with the SMC TAC as the technical group, which will provide the advisory committee to this organization and you a set of recommendations on what to do. We've heard recently that the Salinas Valley Basin hydrologists have noted that there may be long-term declines in the Forebay and the Upper Valley. And I'm talking about like on the order of a foot a year, maybe. Well, I can tell you Gus has done some analysis over the rainfall patterns, and the time period that has been selected has been the last 30 years. The last 30 years is definitely a time period that's an anomaly for the, almost 100 years worth of record that we have for groundwater elevations and rainfall in the Arroyo Seco area, which doesn't show the same sort of declines. So where we ended with, at least at the advisory committee, and what I will tell you is, yeah, the models might show a little bit of a decline in the Forebay. What really matters is what does the data show that gets collected and submitted in the annual reports, and you guys have seen those. We've not had a threshold violated in 5 years. And I don't anticipate this year we're going to again. Point being is that even with the last drought that we've had recovery. And in the last 30 years has been pretty dry, and right towards the end of it was a pretty significant drought. So, I firmly believe that selecting that time period for the analysis has an effect on the analysis. And the data continue to show that we're in good shape. So what does that mean? Well, that means that as Gus and I put together kind of the framework of how we'll use the SMC, it's likely to be aimed at drought conditions. Because drought conditions are the one thing that will impact us. If we don't get recharge from the Arroyo Seco and the Salinas River, we're going to see declining groundwater elevations, and we'll need to be able to address that. We'll need to be able to address it with short-term and long-term actions. And what we'll use the SMC TAC to do is to sort out what kinds of technical data we'll use, what kind of triggers we'll use to enact actions, and then what kind of actions will follow. And those actions will be decided upon by you guys, our board. But we're just at the beginning of that process. Gus and I have just kind of started tinkering away. I plan to have advisory committee meetings in April, in March and April, and then maybe bring you guys up to speed in May, so where we are. But I need to work through some things, bring some solid technical information and approach to the advisory committee and get buy-in before I come back to you. So that's the plan on the SMC TAC and demand management in the Arroyo Seco Cone management area. Last thing, we're trying to schedule coordination committee meeting next week. Members of the staff at the Clark Colony has made it crystal clear that there's some concern about, wholesale changes of our coordination agreement, our implementation agreement. So I'm likely to walk some of that back. I gave you a pretty good chunk last time. I may not bring anything at all. I'm trying to get to talk to Ms. Harmon so we can be, lockstep, but we will be talking about fees and about some of the other elements that we've got kind of cooking, but that's, I think, scheduled for the 4th. I know the reach out, I haven't seen the agenda yet, but we're trying to work on that and just want you guys to be aware of that date, and we usually would have them in a late morning, huh?
Yeah, I got one of those.
You got your, okay.
Deals, yeah, and so I went like that, so we'll see.
Okay, so that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions or comments from board members?
I just have a quick question about this methodology. So you said they went back 30 years. Does that include the last 5 years? Or was that because
Well, when we're looking at, call it sustainable groundwater elevations,
Yeah.
We want to have, some chunk of time.
I got
5
it.
years is probably too short.
No, I'm not saying to just look at 5 years. I'm asking if the last 30 years that you were just talking about included the last 5 years.
I think they took it to 2023,
Okay.
93 to 23, or 24. But
And does 30 years make sense? I mean,
not to me,
Okay.
because we have a much longer track record.
Right.
And the Arroyo has shown, the cone, and frankly, the forebay has shown if there's enough rainfall and we get enough recharge, it responds or it rebounds. And it has, for many decades. So, I think taking this last 30 years is kind of a convenient snapshot. I think they can get consistent data in all of the basins, but I don't think it's representative of what's actually going on in the forebay and the West Echo Cone in particular. But there was an acknowledgement from the Salinas Valley staff that the model is just that. It's a model, it's a target. It's the data that count. And the
Yeah.
data shows that we're sustainable.
yeah. And I mean, yeah, it's just a study. Yeah, but decisions are going to be made based on that study. So it's not just I said decisions will be made by people, right? Based on that study. So it isn't just a study. It's the basis of which some people are going to be making decisions that may or may not be the best decisions.
Okay, so I do want to say that I believe part of the analysis and the finding goes to kind of the broader context of having a demand management program in your toolbox. And I might argue that it's an inappropriate selection of the time frame. I think it's, a broader time frame is more representative because we have the data. Nevertheless, we're already moving forward with our own approach to how we might implement a demand management program. And I think that's the right answer, coupled with the right triggers and the fact that we're going to be reliant on the groundwater elevation data, not a model projecting out there 30 years.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Curtis, a quick question. It seems like somewhere in the future, they would have to add some years. In other words, if they're not looking at the last 5 years, let's say that we're 15 years from now and we're implementing all these different things, or the GSA is implementing things maybe valley-wide. It seems like sooner or later you have to widen that window that you're looking at, because otherwise it's always showing the same thing. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, again, I don't remember exactly the year that they cut it off, but you're right. Sooner or later, you got to include them. That's why I'm a strong proponent for using a much longer data set. Because it's, we've got the data. I'm not sure why we don't use it. But The Arroyo Seco and the forebay, the Arroyo Seco cone and the forebay have always responded to ample rainfall and river flows from the Arroyo Seco River and the Salinas to recharge and rebound. Even this last drought, there was significant rebound in 2022 and 2023. So I'm still on the side that this basin is sustainable. I'm going to continue to say as much and argue the point with the Salinas Valley Basin GSA staff. And we do have public comment.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mr.
pause.
Versick.
Thank you, Chair. Tom Versick speaking. Just a legal footnote to what Mr. Weeks is describing, what Mr. Yates is analyzing, that this is from memory, so it might be a little off. I think it's water code 10721 sub W or X or something. It's way down there about a definition of sustainable, which includes some language that if the groundwater levels drop but then rebound, after a drought, that counts as sustainability. I'm grossly paraphrasing, but my point is that Sigma recognizes the kind of hydrological reality that Mr. Weeks was just describing.
Thank you, Mr. Percy. Yeah, I would thank you for that additional piece of information. And you can see over the time how this groundwater basin has responded to periods of drought and periods of in wet periods. It comes back and it will continue to do so. So we'll be working on the agenda. March the 4th is current schedule for our next coordination committee meeting. And with that, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I see no more public comments. Any other questions or comments from board members?
I would just say that I agree with you, Curtis, that I think the longer representation is more accurate. I mean, it gives you, if you have the data anyway, why not use it? Because it, as we all know, it fluctuates widely depending on the rainfall. So
If I wanted to be the devil's advocate, and frankly, I don't, but if I wanted to be, I could find an argument that over the last 30 years, there has been climate-related changes to rainfall patterns. And that it may have impacted the amounts of rainfall. Now, I don't fully buy into that as an argument. I just take this last couple of weeks as an example. Anytime we can get rainfall and boy, the Arroyo Seco's flowing, the Salinas River's flowing, groundwater basins are getting full. And because of the way the geology of this area is constructed, we recharge, we rebound.
I mean, if what you're saying is the case, if it is weather related, I mean, or pattern related, wouldn't the trends be, in the later years, then it's would show a change in the trend.
Yeah, probably. Here's the thing. The analysis thus far has shown very small increments of decline. So it's, maybe a foot a year, maybe not. I'm not too concerned about it. I think we're fine. Relative to the way our groundwater is being managed, we're on the right track. I'll work with Gus in developing a demand management program, and we'll see how this all has dovetails into the solutions that are going to be brought forward to deal with seawater intrusion and that significant decline in groundwater elevation in the east side. And I just can't dismiss also, what's going to happen out there in Marina Coast and Fort Ord, because that plays a small but important role on the coast. So there's lots of things that are starting to form up that I want you guys aware of, and I'll continue to bring it to you. When I got something substantive, I'll make sure you get it in electronic form.
Any other questions or comments? If not, receive and file the report, and being no further business, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Okay, so you can see